been talking about pressure. Somebody say pressure. And we define pressure as the gap between, jump in there, Pastor Henry, the gap between.
Tension between who we are and who we're becoming.
Pressure is the tension between who we are and who you are becoming. I want to speak this early in this little lesson of ours, that you are on your way to becoming all that God has called you to be. I'm going to say that again. You are on your way to becoming all that God has called you to be. This past weekend, we dove deep into a particular text in the book of Exodus 17 and 12 to be exact. It said Moses' arms soon became so tired, he could no longer hold them up. Moses' arms became so tired that he could no longer hold them up. For the last few weeks, we've been dealing with this idea and the reality of pressure. I've come to the conclusion in my life, and this is a powerful statement, that pressure enters my life two ways, and I want you guys to jump in on this. I've come to the reality and the conclusion that pressure enters my life two ways. How's that, Pastor Mike? Either God placed something on me or I pick something up. That's critical, isn't it? Either God placed something on me or I pick something up. Jump in there. How does pressure come into your life? Let's talk about that.
Oftentimes pressure comes into my life when I try to fight with will instead of wisdom.
Oh, say that again.
I notice sometimes pressure comes into my life when I try to fight with my willpower instead of wisdom.
Can you put that in the comments? I'm gonna let you jump in there. Will versus wisdom. Elaborate on that.
That's important because oftentimes when you fight with will, it leads to what we see Moses experiencing in the text, weariness. And when weariness walks in, wisdom walks out.
Oftentimes, that's a quote. That's a quote for tonight. Let's kick this thing off right, baby boy. When you operate in will,
yes,
it produces weariness.
Yes.
And when weariness walks in, wisdom walks out. I'm finna pause and parenthetically digress, because as you begin to say that, I began to run back in my mind how many decisions I made tired. That's critical, isn't it? How many decisions I made tired. Jump in there, man. Let's talk about that.
So I'm so glad you said that, Pastor D, because when I was reading through Exodus, and I think we talked about this Sunday, Pastor, where the first time God speaks to Moses, he says, hey, I want you to hit the rock, strike the rock. Then he turns around later and says, speak to it.
Yes.
But out of frustration, pressure, Moses hits the rock again instead of speaking to it. And so in my life, you ask, how does pressure come in? Pressure comes into me when I do what Moses did, when I try to do by force what God told me to do by faith.
Ooh, they coming out the gate with fire. Put the camera on Pastor Henry. He lost this week. He's been doing good for the last 3 weeks, but they came prepared tonight. Jesus. So let's talk about this. So pressure comes in. Put this in your notes. Pressure comes in when I try to do by force what he called me to do by faith. That's critical. I wonder who's watching this stream right now trying to force a move of God, trying to force a promotion, trying to force a relationship, trying to force God's hand on your life. When you try to do by force what God has called you to do by faith, pressure comes in. That's critical right there. And he talked about Moses strikes the rock. We talked about this, and I really want you to catch this, because oftentimes when God provides, it requires participation. Oftentimes when God provides, it requires participation. Let's talk about this. God placed water inside the rock, but Moses had to do what? Strike it. God parted the Red Sea, but Moses had to do what? Stretch out his rod. God can make manna fall from the sky, but Moses had to do what? Speak it. I want to elaborate on 3 things. There are 3 things I believe that 3 instructions that sometimes God gives in pressure-filled situations. And our inability, I'm going to say this, the inability to handle pressure inhibits your ability to discern what to do in crisis. The inability to handle pressure it prevents your ability to discern what to do in crisis. Because I want to submit, I want you to jump in here, class. Here it is. God placed water in the rock, but Moses had to do what? Strike it. Come on, y'all. God placed water in the rock. Moses had to what? Strike it. God parted the Red Sea, but Moses had to do what? Stretch out. God can make manna fall from the sky, but Moses had to do what? Speak it. 3 things we got to discern: when to strike, stretch, and speak. That's critical, ain't it? When to strike, stretch, and speak. I really want to talk about this because I am guilty of seasons of my life when God just told me to speak, but my immaturity made me strike it. Oh, who want to jump in on that? Anybody want to jump in on that?
One of the things I'll jump in with that, I think one of the issues that Moses faced is that he's trying to give an instruction to people who haven't yet come through redemption. And until people come through redemption, they can't rightly receive instruction. Because these people, when we look at their journey, they're coming first out of subjection where they're in slavery. Then he's walking them through the process of redemption. Then they can receive instruction. And because they haven't come through redemption, they're frustrating the leader and they're frustrating Moses because they're looking to him for stuff that they should learn to look to God for.
Go back to the beginning. Because they haven't come through redemption, it's
they
hard for
couldn't
them to
receive
instruction. What's the definition of redemption?
When we talk about redemption, we're talking about something coming back to its rightful purpose.
So let's stop again. So it's clear to say the children of Israel have been out of purpose. So they've been out of purpose. So can we argue that they've been out the will of God? Can we argue that? All right. So since they've been out of the will of God, he's rescued them, but he hasn't redeemed them. That's critical. He's rescued them, but he hasn't redeemed them.
See, their bodies are out, but their spirits aren't.
Yes, their bodies are out, jumping that, but their spirit ain't.
Yeah, see, their body has come out of Egypt, but their minds and their spirit are still stuck on the 400 years that they've just had.
I wonder who's watching this stream right now, who your body has come out of your last place of employment, but your mind hasn't. I wonder who's in a relationship right now miserable because your body with somebody new, but your mind with your ex. They've been rescued, but they haven't been redeemed. Pastor, I don't want to talk about this. That may be why, and I'm coming to you, Leslie, that may be why when the prodigal son came home, the first thing he did was put a robe and a ring on him. He said, now that you're back, I can't have you walking in the house looking like what you came from. Let me, I'm going to have church redeemed you. I want to pause and parenthetically digress. And Rod, I may have church right here because the reason certain people can't handle who you are is because when they saw you as a wretch undone, they weren't in the process of God redeeming you. And redemption often doesn't look like what you come from. Am I talking to anybody? I've been redeemed. Come on.
And in many ways, this was their redemption journey. Because remember, we pointed out that they had been in slavery for 400 years. They had no idea of the resume of God. They had no experience with God. So this was their first encounter, and it was leading them into their redemption process.
Start over. Say that again, because that's good. I don't want them to miss that. Say it again, Leslie.
This was their redemption process. They had been in slavery.
Stop. So here's my job. I mean this. I'm just a traffic control cop. That's all I'm doing right now. I'm just trying to make sure y'all get all this stuff. It was a redemption what?
The redemption process.
Stop. Put that in the notes. It was a redemption process. A lot of us want to be redeemed, but don't want to go through the process. Lady left me at home today with the kids. I had to get her out the house. That can be a lot. 5 kids, those walls start closing in on you. I sent her out the house and she left me with some clearance trucks. She said, make sure we're trying to potty train Miles. Make sure you put Miles on some good clothes. Watch him. Make sure Xander get to practice. Take these clothes out the washer, put them in the dryer. That's all she asked me to do. Take them out the washer, put them in the dryer. That was the most complicated day I've had. Because to me, I'm looking at the clothes. It's too many buttons on the dryer. Do I put it on 40 minutes? Do I put it on 60 minutes? What's a soft dry? What's a hot dry? It was just too many buttons on it. And I called, she said, you're doing too much. Move that thing to 30 and just press start. And I was sitting here, she's like, don't worry about that. Just do what you got to do. And it made me think about when those clothes came out, I was so proud. But I was only one problem. This finna preach. They were sticking together. Because I forgot to put the dry sheet in. So although I went through all the steps, watch this, they got dry, but there was a small part of the process that was overlooked. Many of you right now, when you overlook steps, you water down your redemption, not from what God wants to do in you, but I believe, and y'all argue back with me, you create holes and gaps that the devil now has access to. Talk to me about that.
That's so good, Pastor, because you said you skipped a step. And what I've learned is that God orders steps, not elevators.
Say it again. That's good.
God orders steps, not elevators. And so in our haste or in our rush to try to get somewhere, to try to get something done, to try to walk in purpose, to try to become somebody, we want to take the elevator. We want to take the escalator. We want to get there to the top floor as soon as we can. But God says, I order steps, which means your foot has to hit each place on this pathway to where you're supposed to be.
That's crazy. I really want to talk about this redemption. Somebody say redemption. And this is critical. So what do we see? The children of Israel, we can give them context when we find them in Exodus. Exodus being the book of exits. The Exodus being the book of exits. Here's a good place to preach and a good place to shout. And if God is the God of exits, then I'm never trapped. Did you catch that? Exodus is God's resume on how he always makes a way. I think I might preach. I've been studying too just a little bit now. Y'all ain't finna stunt on me on my own Bible study. Exodus is God's resume on how he always makes a way. Because whenever God brings you out, he always brings you in. Y'all miss what I just said. In other words, I'm not just gonna bring you out of Egypt. I'm trying to take you to the promised land, but how you handle the pressure of the wilderness determines if you walk in the promise. Did you catch that? So this is incredible. Why? Because the first problem they had was about provision. We just talked about this. The children of Israel, how am I going to feed these people? How am I going to get them water? And I want to talk about this because God always provides for his children, though often it is not in a way we expect or hope. The challenge for most of us is to see his provision and care, even if it shows up different than we expect. I want to give you something and let's elaborate about this. Number one, God may provide differently than we expect. Can we define provision? Put this on the screen. The act of providing or making previous preparations. Provision is the act of providing or making previous preparations. Who wants to jump in and talk about provisions real quickly?
One of the things I'll share about provision, I think what Exodus 17 reveals to us is the gospel of progressive battles. Because I think one of the things that we see God do is that God doesn't take the Israelites directly from Egypt into the promise. Is that he walks them through these series of progressions where through trials and tribulations, he prepares them for where he wants them to go. And so he said, he even says earlier on when he let them out, he said, I could take you this shortcut, but if you come up against a battle that's too big for you, it's gonna make you turn back. And so what I've got to do is I've got to give you a little bit at a time. And every time I'm training you a little bit more and I'm giving you some more. And so even when we talk about their spirituality, we see the evolution of the spirituality of the Israelites through how they engage with water. All right. Now, if I could be a little revelatory here for a second, I want to kind of sit on that. So first we see that water is a dividing line between where they were and where they're going. They have to cross this Red Sea because God is saying, I'm trying to start a brand new spiritual thing in you. And then we see them come to the point where they come tomorrow where the water is bitter, but the water is there, but there's this, they have to put wood in it, which is symbolic of Christ and the cross. And he says, I've got to put something else in your spirituality so it won't be stuck and all this kind of stuff. And then it brings us to where Moses is, where he says, okay, I'm trying to bring you water out of the rock, but what I'm teaching you to do is, as you just said, Pastor Mike, is I'm teaching you to say what you heard me say. And so he's walking them on this progressive journey because he's trying to show us that when God wants to get us somewhere, when we're in the wilderness, we don't just get out, we have to grow out. And many of us are trying to get out of what God says, I want to grow you out of. And I think that's one of the things we got to grow.
I got to stop you. Put this in the comments. Don't just get out, grow out. I want you, if you're watching on Facebook right now, literally, I'm in the comments and I'm looking at you. Any question you have, throw it at us. We're going to try our best to get to all of them. Don't just get out. Say it with me. Grow out. Don't just get out. What? Grow out. Don't just get out. Grow out. This is so critical. And I love what he said about water because throughout Moses' life, his life is marred with water. He's placed in water. He's drawn out of water. His name means to be drawn out of water. The line of division from where he is and where he's going is separated by water. The water then becomes bitter. Then number 3, he says, your test, he misses the promised land because of water. So the very thing I pulled you out of is the same thing that can hold you back. Did you catch what I just said? This is critical provision. The children of Israel are in the desert and God provides. Watch this. They long for food. Watch this. This is critical. How are we going to feed them? God says, I'm going to make bread fall from heaven. I want you to catch this now. And in the Bible, we see where the children of Israel are longing for the food from Egypt. Why is that important, PMJ? God was literally providing bread from heaven, enough for each day, but they wanted his provision to come in a different way. Put this in the comments, please. Provision isn't always about your preference. It's to assist your purpose. Provision isn't about your preference. It's about assisting your purpose. And I need you to understand that sometimes God does not show up. I might say all the time. He never shows up in the way I want him to show up. I asked God for strength. He sent me a problem. I asked God for patience. He sent me a test. I asked him to provide. He sent me prayer, a reason to pray. We have to understand, just like this, our inability to handle pressure inhibits our ability to discern. The first problem they had was provision. The second problem they had was solved through prevailing prayer. And here's where I really want to sit in something. We have 1,000 people watching us on Facebook, and this is so powerful, through prevailing prayer. I want to challenge you right here, because what we have to understand is God says, no. This time, it's going to require intercession. It's going to require intercession. Let's talk about prevailing prayer. Who wants to dive in there about prayer, the power of prayer? Anybody? Let's go.
I think oftentimes when it comes to intercession, a lot of people kind of get it mixed up with just praying with your lips, when really intercession should be expressed with your lips, but executed in your life by laying your life down for another person. The best picture of intercession is Jesus on the cross, standing in the gap for all of humanity to bridge and connect us back to the Father.
That's good.
And so sometimes people disqualify themselves for intercession because they think they need the ability or stature to pray at a certain level verbally.
That's good.
When really, sometimes the greatest intercession is you intervening to serve someone else.
Let's do this. I want to put this in the comments. Intercession isn't just reserved for intercessors. See, if we're not careful in this church culture, we're going to start making people believe they got to be in a position to be to function. Intercession isn't just reserved for intercessors. So if we're not careful, I can't intercede because I'm not an intercessor. Or I can't preach because I'm not a preacher. No, the platform, I believe there has to be a calling on your life to do so. But I believe prayer isn't just a decision, it's a discipline. See, we miss the power of prayer when we relegate it to a decision. I'm gonna decide to pray. No, prayer is a discipline. I may want a six-pack. I don't decide to get a six-pack. Y'all don't hear what I just said. I don't decide to get a six-pack. Discipline builds the six-pack. I don't decide I want lasagna. Discipline in knowing how to properly mix those ingredients. I want to submit to somebody. The reason your prayer life is weak because you keep deciding to pray. You don't have a discipline to say prayer will be. I don't just pray to live. I live to pray. Talk about prayer. Come on, let's go.
Of course, intercession is my thing, Pastor. My definition of being an intercessor is literally catching a heartbeat of heaven. It's true alignment with God.
That's
so when
good.
you intercede, you're literally speaking into the earthly realm what heaven has already declared. So I'm bringing my divinity into my humanity. I'm saying, God, whatever you say, it goes from my mouth to God's ears, and I watch it manifest in the earthly realm. That's, to me, true intercession.
That's good. Jump in there. Let's go.
One of the things I was going to say to piggyback on what she said, intercession is not for the official, it's for the aware. And I think one of the things that we've got to see is that the moment we become...
Stop. No. Say that again and say it slow.
Intercession is not for the official, it's for the aware. It's not, I don't intercede because I have a title. I intercede because God brought something into my path. And when he brings it into my path, that's his call for me to intercede and be a part of it.
Jesus, let's go. That if God put it on my heart, jump in there, Curtis. I see your heart.
I want to add to that because you taught us what intercession was. You said intercession is not just praying for someone, but it's praying as someone. And so when you're praying, you're literally taking on their problems. You're praying as if they are praying. And so it makes it hard. Like, what do you do when you're praying for someone you may not necessarily like? So at this point, now you have to put your feelings to the side. You have to put how you feel to the side and make sure you pray not just for them, but as them. That's the intercession.
That just messed me up. Intercession isn't for the official, it's for the awareness. If you are aware of it, you should be talking to God about it. I want to pause and parenthetically digress because I feel God called. We can't talk about intercession and not practice intercession. Right now, in the name of Jesus, I lift up anybody watching this stream who's going through something. I pray right now, no anxiety, no heartache, no depression, no suicide. I lift up this city. I lift up this country. God, we call on you right now. Because God, this story isn't about how we can just win victories. This story is about how only God can give victory and how only God can get the glory. So God, we thank you right now for all that you're doing. God, I got to stop because I get stuck right there. This past Sunday, we went an hour after church was over just praying and fasting and interceding. Why, Pastor Mike? Because we're understanding that what we're going through right now isn't just physical, it's what? Spiritual. This is so critical. I need you to catch this. Why, PMJ? I need you to understand when we tiptoe into this text, they're going to battle. We are introduced to four characters. 3 who are popular and 1 who we don't know about. That's powerful, isn't it? 3 who are popular. All of us know Moses. He the prophet. We know Moses, the lawgiver, the one who hears from God. We know Aaron. We know Joshua. But who is her? Not H-E-R. Her, H-what? U-R. Let's talk about that. Jump in there, Darius. Talk about her. You like her. Talk about her.
Her is one of my favorite characters of the Bible because he doesn't have the biggest role, but in able to walk out the calling and assignment of her, you don't care about having the biggest role, but you must have the biggest soul because it means you're going to make sacrifices sometimes without getting the credit. It means sometimes when your leader is lifting their hands up and they get tired, you don't expose their weakness or weariness. You find a way to strengthen them and give them a rock, a structure to sit on and hold their hands up because you know that when their hands up, we're winning. But when their hands are down, we're losing. And so I love her a lot because he exemplifies the spirit of a two-man. One of my mentors, Elder Ramon Harper, he wrote a book on being a two-man, and I believe that her, outside of Jesus, is the greatest picture of what being a two-man is like in an age where we have so much vain ambition. Everyone wants to start their own, but who wants to support the person that God has called? And so when you see her, you see someone really walking in humility.
That's critical, and I like what he said right there. The first thing we have to understand is her. So let me catch you up for those. I don't want to presuppose you know who we're talking about. So the children of Israel are on their journey. They come over the Red Sea. Let's shout. We done made it over the Red Sea. Can't you hear the gossip? Oh my God. They done part. Boy, that boy Moses bad, ain't he? He stretched out that stick he got, and all of a sudden that water went boom. And we was walking through an aquarium and we could see all type of fish glued to the side. Can't you see that right there? But then word begins to spread to the Amalekites that they on their way. How many of them is it? It's a couple million of them. The Amalekites then, this can really preach, instead of doing an investigation, the Amalekites then become threatened by the Israelites. See, many of you are under attack right now, not because you did something, but people see in you what you probably don't even see in them. 6 of y'all are just out of type, I'm a threat. This is critical. Why, PMJ? And I really need you to catch this because what we see in this text is their inability to handle someone who appears to be a threat. Have there ever been times in your life where you were insecure? Somebody jump in there on the power of being, on the danger of being insecure. Somebody jump in there real quick. Let's talk about that.
So one thing about insecurity, Pastor, is that in moments of insecurity, you overlook what God is doing in you in favor of what you see God doing in somebody else.
That's good.
And so you can't really appreciate who you are, who you're called to be, where you're called to go, who you're called to minister to, what God wants to do in your life because you're so busy watching what God is doing in somebody else.
That's good. That's good. So what do we see? This is good. A person who is insecure lacks confidence in his or her own value. A person who is insecure lacks confidence in his or her own value. They possess, we talked about this early in the year, a scarcity mindset. A scarcity mindset suggests that in order for God to bless me, he has to hurt you. That's critical, isn't it? It's a scarcity mindset that in order for me to win, you have to lose. And your view reveals you. Did you catch that? Your view reveals you. Can I read something to you real quickly? Go to Deuteronomy 25, 17 through 19. Can you go there? Never forget what the Amalekites did to you as you came from Egypt. Watch this now. They attacked you when you were exhausted and weary. They struck down those who were straggling behind. They had no fear of God. Verse 19, therefore, when the Lord your God has given you rest from all your enemies in the land he has given you as a special possession, you must destroy the Amalekites and erase their memory from under heaven. Never forget this. We always talk about them being attacked. We never talk about how they were attacked. How were they attacked? They did a couple things. The first thing they attacked was the weak. As we find ourselves in this movement right now, this moment in history where there is spiritual warfare happening and physical warfare happening. Because what's happening, there's a picture happening right here. The Amalekites decide to attack. Who do they attack first? The weak. Watch this, the stragglers. I want to make a clarion call to those of you who are on the fringes, who you saved one day, not saved the next. You decide you want to live right 2 weeks, and all of a sudden you disappear for 3 months. I'm not trying to beat you up. I'm here to pick you up. If anybody knows my heart, knows that I'm the type of pastor who I do not judge. I love you just the way you are. But the man of God in me, the prophet in me, is telling you right now, it is not the season to be straggling on the fence. It is time to get your life in order, because the devil is going to pick off those who are far behind. Did you catch that? He's coming for those who are straggling. He attacks the weak. Watch this now. And he attacked the untrained. He attacked the untrained, those civilians who weren't even prepared to fight, but they were in the number. Jump in there, Leslie.
So I kind of want to argue with you just a touch. So as I was reading over this story, I kind of consulted one of the commentaries, the New American Commentary, and one of the things that it talks about is this is the first battle that the Israelites have encountered, and it was specifically what they called a holy war, which they provide the directions for later on in Deuteronomy. But one of the rules of a holy war is that you weren't allowed to have trained soldiers. All you had was a volunteer force. These were people who solely had to depend on God. And they solely had to know that their victory came from him. So in this battle, the only person that could call a holy war was the prophet. And when Moses called this battle and said that I'll go up to Horeb, it was because God showing them, in my opinion, I'm not going to say it's exegesis, but in my opinion, he showed them in a smaller battle what was to come in the larger battle. Because when they got to Canaan, had they not fought all these small battles along the way, there's no way that they would have been prepared for what they would encounter in the promised land, which we know their faith failed because they hadn't caught their faith lesson, but their physical lesson they had an understanding of.
That's good. Come and jump in there. Come on here and help me.
Sometimes we tend to forget that these are not trained soldiers fighting in this battle. These are ex-slaves. They have been slaves for over 400 years. And I think sometimes we can get arrogant when we actually experience victories, not even realizing we were not even trained to win in areas that we're winning. And so the very fact that they have victory in this battle is evidence of the favor of God. But what this really speaks to and blesses my soul is that they are clear on where God is telling them to go. Because the enemy shows up when they're getting close to their promise. Because he knows if the enemy cannot defeat you, he will distract you.
Oh, that's good.
And so what we're seeing right now is happening is the enemy is attempting to have Israel die, not by a demonic attack, but really by distraction. Because the enemy of discipleship is not the devil, but distractions. And I think that's what a lot of people have struggled in their life, that they know God has called them to something, but they cannot fix their focus and stay focused on the assignment that God has for them.
Distracted.
And when every small attack shows up, they give all of their focus to that attack. When wherever your focus goes, your energy flows.
Wherever your focus goes, your energy flows. Did you hear that? I am surrounded by some geniuses and some anointed men and women of God. Wherever your focus goes, your enemy flows. So many people are calling me right now, Pastor Mike, when are you going to address the Church of the Highlands situation? When are you going to come? It's time for you to say something. And God took me to the scripture. I don't have time to fight battles God ain't called me to. Because everything ain't a battle. Some stuff is a distraction. If we can stop, we got to focus on justice. We need to focus on making sure these police officers are convicted. We got to make sure we got policies in place. We got to hold our local government to accountability, that police officers can no longer beat up and abuse black and brown brothers and sisters. Right now, I've never been more focused as I am in my life right now. I understand, even when me and Lady had a slight hiccup this week, I paused mid-argument to stop. I said, this is a distraction. I said, we've been focusing and praying like we ain't never prayed before. What, we ain't finna fuss about kids. This is a distraction. Too many of you right now are defeating Goliath and then losing to distractions. Too many of you are crossing Red Seas and then arguing about somebody trying to come from behind. I bind up weapons of mass distractions. I declare you are about to be as focused as you need to be. Let God deal with the little fires. God is calling you to a greater assignment. It's something on your spirit. Jump in there.
I think one of the things that we've got to see
Jesus.
is that our reward for one victory is another battle.
Come on.
And I think sometimes we miss that. We miss that when we succeed at one thing, God says, okay, to continue the process, I've got to give you something else.
That's good.
So yes, you just defeated Pharaoh and his army through faith. I did all the working. All you had to do was the walking. But this time around, he says, I'm sending you to another level where now I'm saying your battle comes in the form of you got to be able to actually get on the ground and fight. And so every time we conquer one giant, God says, okay, congratulations. Here goes another one.
I'm gonna fight him. I gotta help y'all more. Y'all be saying stuff and don't even realize what you said. He said, you conquered Pharaoh because I did all the working. All you had to do was the walking. I don't think you heard what I just said. God told me to tell you the reason you are so overwhelmed and filled with pressure right now, because you keep trying to do God's job. And God is saying, while you trying to do my job, I'm gonna just hold back. Because if you just be still, do me a favor, just touch somebody around you and shout, God's working. Look at somebody else and say, he's working. I need 10 folk who don't have a shame bone in your body. Whatever you need God to work out, I need you to type it right now. Because I want to declare by faith, he's working on your marriage. He's working on your career. He's working on your solution. He's working on your health. That whatever is in front of you, God said, if you do the walking, I'll do the working. If you do the walking, I'll do the working. If you strike it, I'll make something come out of it. If you speak to it, I'll make something come from heaven. If you stretch, I'll part something. And I want to declare that you don't have a problem that is too big for your God. You ought to just walk and watch God work. Somebody type, he's working it out. He's working it out. He's working it out. He's working it out. Grandmama said, while you're trying to figure it out, God is working it out. The Amalekites began to attack. You want to know the problem that we have as men and women of God? We spend too much time celebrating. Too much time celebrating. Too much time celebrating. You know, I just got a promotion. Thank God. But the moment you wake up the next day, you better get ready because something coming. Ooh, I felt that. I'm going to say, I need you to type this in the comments. I don't know who this is for, but it's prophetic. It's after you. It's after you. Even when we look at the children of Israel, the only reason Pharaoh is chasing them is because the Bible says God hardened Pharaoh's heart. That looks like a trick, don't it? Let me show you how the games God played. This is so cold-blooded. God tells them, God sends plague and says, you better let them folk go. He let them go. Then God says, you just gonna let them go like that? If I was you, I'll go get them. Pharaoh jumps up and goes and get them. Now, somebody who's immature would look at this scripture and say, how God sending an attack when they don't realize in order for God to kill them, he had to make them chase him. Now, I heard Dr. Darius Daniel say this, and it blessed my life. God said no. Not only did he part the Red Sea, but he hardened the ground. Because at the bottom of the Red Sea is quicksand, but it's mushy. He said the reason he had to harden the ground because he didn't want them to leave footprints. Because footprints are an indication of your past. If your past wants to find you, all they have to do is follow the tracks. And God says, not only am I delivering you, but I'm erasing the past. So what you left can't find you. My old habits won't be able to find me by November. My ex won't be able to get in contact with me because God is erasing the footprints. I decree and declare a new season is about to shift in your life. Old things are passed away. Somebody ought to shout, new season, new season, new season, new season. Get ready for, sit down, Mike. New season. This is critical. Critical. The Amalekites began to attack. But the Amalekites should have known, Leslie, with all your degrees, the Amalekites should have known that God had promised the land of Canaan to Israel. They should have known this because the Amalekites were descendants of Esau. The Amalekites were descendants of Esau. And Esau was the twin brother of who? Jacob. So by default, the Amalekite, watch this, are the distant cousins of the Israelites. So they are intimidated by something they should have investigated. You want to know what's one of the number one plagues on our community right now? Family division. Here it is, they are attacking somebody they had access to. They should have sent someone out, an emissary, someone out to just say, hey, go see exactly what their intentions are. I want to argue, I wonder who's stressing right now, frustrated with somebody when a conversation can bring clarity. On the cross, I'm excited. I love having y'all here. On the cross, we see two people who end up in two different places based off a conversation. Jesus in the middle. One says, if you really him, get out. The other one says, when you come into your kingdom, remember me. Since you're here, let's talk. Jump in there. Come on, y'all. Jump in there. Jump in there.
One of the things that's got me super excited, that I'm super excited about, is that the division between the Amalekites and the Israelites is because they've had different experiences.
Come on.
The Israelites have been through something that the Amalekites haven't been through. And because they've been through something that the Amalekites haven't been through, they have something that the Amalekites don't have. Because what the Amalekites are doing in attacking the rear, really what they want, they're not just attacking for the sake of attacking, they're attacking because of what they got. They know that when the Israelites came out of Egypt, word has gotten out that they plundered the Egyptians. And so they came out with gold and they came out with all kinds of stuff. And so when the Amalekites attack the rear, what they're saying is, we're going to go after the weak because they weak, but they still got what everybody else got. And so we're going to try to take them out, get what they got so that we can have what they have. And so what happens is they go in there, instead of asking for it, they attack and try to take it, and they end up losing everything because, like you said, they're connected, but they're distant. And the thing that sets them apart is not just who they are, but I think one of the things that we so often miss is that people have what they have because God took them what they went through. And so we think that sometimes we can just take what other people have, when the truth of the matter is, you can't have my glory without knowing my story.
You was too churchy. Jump in that deep. Jump in that deep.
I want to go a little bit deeper because they come from the lineage of Esau and Jacob. Jacob, the nation of Israel comes from Jacob. Amalekites come from Esau. And so what we see is this is deep in the family ties, the bloodline issues. And we know that Jacob actually stole the birthright from Esau when he was tired. And we see
weariness.
Now, when Israel is tired, they're trying to take back what they have. This is not a problem. This is a pattern. And sometimes we confuse problems
with patterns.
Come on. And when we don't fix the pattern, we'll keep having the same problem because whatever is not healed gets handed down.
Stop. We go, right. You better put the strings on there. This is not a problem. Say it again.
This is not a problem. This is a pattern. And I feel like talking to somebody that's here right now, that maybe you have been facing problems and it seems like it's happening in cycles. That whenever you experience, this is the spirit of Amalekite. The spirit is this: they attack you after a big victory.
When you're weary.
After your big victory, they come to drain you.
And whatever doesn't get healed
gets handed down.
Since Esau and Jacob didn't get healed right properly, it's been bleeding over into generate. I destroy and I bind and I break every generational curse. Oh my God. I felt God on that one. I want to declare the enemy don't have a problem with you. He wants your stuff. And don't even realize the only reason I got this stuff is because I went through some stuff that made me who I am right now. If you want my goal, you should have went through my slavery. Because if I didn't go through the slavery, I wouldn't have been in a position to get the goal. And people want your power, but don't want to go through your process. I'm preaching to somebody, 7 folk out of type, you can't have my stuff. Don't want my anointing if you can't survive my attacks. Don't want my favor if you can't handle my fight. Don't want my prayer life if you can't handle my pain. Don't want my toil if you can't handle my tears. I came to submit to somebody that what I got, I paid for. What I got, I did not get on sale. What I got, I paid full price for. And because I paid for it, I'm prepared for the pressure that comes with it. I want to say this to you. Let's jump in here. I'm loving tonight. They're telling me time is up, but since I'm the pastor, we're going to keep going. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. Many people are too cheap about their purpose.
That's good. That's good, Pastor.
Too many people are too cheap about their purpose. Make that make sense, Pastor Mike. I bought Michael a Sonic the Hedgehog PlayStation game. The lady at the counter asked me a question that we need to place before every person who's praying for stuff. Do you want the warranty? Now I look back and say, no, I don't want the warranty. They break it. Until they broke it. Now I have to go pay full price for something I've already paid for that I could have just got replaced had I put the proper investment in the beginning. I'm overwhelmed right now. Moses looks at Joshua and says, this is what I need you to do. Choose some men to go out and fight the army of Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand at the top of the hill holding the staff of God, the banner of God. So Joshua did what Moses commanded and fought the army of Amalek. This is critical. Moses, Aaron, and Hur go to the top of the hill. This is critical. Why is this critical? Because Joshua is fighting physically while Aaron and Hur are warring what? Spiritually. In other words, we got to have people in our life who are comfortable in the mud or on the mountain. Her. Let's go home. Her. Why is this important? I need you to catch this. This is, man, tonight bless my life. I really believe somebody's going to be blessed by tonight. Her. This goes to every person. I want to pause for a minute because I want to talk to all the hers in the room. All the hers. Who everybody know Moses. He going to get glory. Everybody know Aaron. Everybody know Joshua. Don't nobody know her. Moses ends up in the Hall of Faith. Joshua on ESPN because he beat the Battle of Jericho. Aaron is what, the priest? The priest. Who is her? Now we understand her comes from the lineage of Judah in a sense, so he represents a king. When we see them on that hill, you have the prophet in the middle, the priest on one side, and the king on the other, which is an example of how we should operate to deal with some of the stuff we're dealing with now, which is why I try my best to lift our mayor, king of this city up in prayer. I try my best to stand with him on all the things I can. I try my best to speak truth to him. I try my best sometimes just say, Father God, I'm praying for him, because since he's been placed in that position, the worst thing we can have is the king, the prophet, and the priest at war. Did you catch what I just said right there? What do we need to realize? I want to pause for a minute and parenthetically digress and thank every her at Rock City. All these brothers who are holding cameras, all these young ladies who help do all the stuff around here, every greeter, every volunteer. Rock City don't work without you. People like her are absolutely invaluable. This is critical. Watch this. Her wasn't a great leader like Moses. He wasn't a general like Joshua. He wasn't a high priest like Aaron. He wasn't a warrior like those in the army. He was just her. The Bible does tell us later that her was a man of influence, according to Exodus 24:14. Rumor even has it that he was Miriam's husband. It's critical. Who's Miriam, Leslie?
Miriam is Moses' sister.
So Miriam, watch this, is Moses' sister.
Who at one point
rebelled. Keep going.
She wound up with leprosy because she didn't agree with the way that her brother was doing things. So she challenged her brother's authority, and her punishment was to have leprosy. And Moses loved her so much that he prayed. The rule was they were supposed to leave her. However, he held up everything for the amount of time that it took for her to be healed, so that she could travel on to go into the promised land.
Now, is this post this heal or after?
I believe, Pastor Harry, help me. I think that's before this.
So this happened before this or after this?
I think it was after this.
Okay.
Yeah, because here's another thing about Miriam. Miriam, we discover, was racist. Miriam gets mad at Moses because he marries a Cushite woman, a woman whose skin is as black as it can be. And so some Jewish traditions say that her was married to Miriam, but there are also some traditions who suggest that he could have been Caleb's son, that he could have been the son of Caleb, who was Joshua's running partner. And that comes from this oral tradition where the scripture was passed down in Jewish culture. But one of the things that we do see about her, and I love that you mention him, is that her becomes this man who is walking in great influence, but it's clear that what God has put in him, he always brings to the table. That's one of the things I love. I love what Pastor Darius said earlier. He said he provides, I think you said, the structure. He says he provides the structure to bring it up. And when I look at them on the top of the mountain, there are two things that jump out to me, and I can feel the weight of what you're saying in this moment, is that you see two things represented. You see, number one, prayer represented. Is that it is indicated that the lifting of hands was a posture of prayer. So as Moses was the people, as Aaron and Moses helped Aaron and her helped Moses keep his spiritual focus aligned. He's staying in connection with God. They're interceding with him. They're interceding for him. They're praying with him. And as they do that, the victory comes. But also, we can believe that he has his rod, because the rod was often the tool through which that he would work. And it was to them what the rod was in the Old Testament, the cross is the New Testament. As the cross stays lifted, as the main thing stays the main thing, then everything begins to come about. And so I think what our task is as the herds, as you said, of ministry, is to make sure that we're always lifting up, that we're making sure that we're keeping the spiritual focus and the spiritual drive of what God has called us to do out front, and know that it's not about us, it's about the purpose.
I want to say this because, again, Pastor Mike, why you keep bringing people onto your stream, that's pastors don't do that. Like, no, it's all about me. No. I thank God for surrounding me with good people. Hers, watch this, are invaluable. Hers are always involved. Her knows what he brings to the table, knows what she brings to the table, and says, this is who I am, this is what I do. Hers are often invisible. That's why I'm trying my best to just honor. One of my best members got a little sick. She called lady today, and we got on the phone and began to pray with her. I said, now who at home with you? She said, nobody at home with me, it's just me. I said, here's what we're going to do. We your Uber Eats. I said, you get hungry, let us know. We bring you something to eat. We don't want you at home alone stressing, not only about your health, but what I'm going to eat today. When one of our best members' father passed, we took so much food to the house, it didn't make no sense. So many people. See, I'm trying to do a good job. We do a good job of celebrating Moses and castrating her.
Wow, that's good.
Man, Pastor Mike, the truth. Why you don't love Leslie? She helped me she helps me function in who I. Let's do this before we go. Let's do this. Tangible ways they can be her. Because so many people saying, Pastor Mike, I want to help lift your arms up. Let me give you context. So as Moses is on the hill with his arms lifted, he get tired. The Bible says as he lifted his hands, Joshua and the army began to win the victory. When Moses gets tired and drop his hands, they have to retreat. That's important. They didn't just lose, they retreated. The enemy sent them running. This is critical. So what did they do? Aaron and Hur put Moses on a rock, and they said, we'll keep your hands lifted. What's some practical ways they can keep my hands lifted?
One of the things that I want to say is we see it at the end of the scripture. Once Joshua has fought, they have won the battle. God tells Moses, write down the story of what happened and whisper into Joshua's ears when he's weak.
Wow.
And to me, one way that we keep your arms lifted is keeping the resume. The rod was nothing more than God's resume. It was said that in the rod, every miracle that God had performed for the people of Israel was written on that rod. So when we have a rod of God's resume that we can bring back to you, that encourages you to remember, like if he did it over here, the Bible says that he never changes. He's the same God today, yesterday, and forevermore. So if he did it before, he's got to do it again.
Remind me. That's what she's saying, remind me. Whenever he get down, go whisper in his ear this moment.
Fasting and praying may not be impressive, but it's impactful. And as long as we pray and fast for you, it's nothing you can't overcome.
You wanna know what's critical? What's critical? Hers are invisible. I'm gonna say this, and if what I'm about to say resonates with your spirit, I need you to just say thank you. I want you to type thank you if what I'm about to say resonates with your spirit. I want to thank every person who I don't know who prayed for me. Have you ever had a moment where you said, I know somebody praying for me? You can feel it. I want to say thank you to every person who prayed with me. I want to say thank you to every person who held you down. We spend too much time talking about our enemies and our haters and not our hers. We gotta start something, her over haters. H-U-R, her over haters. Instead of talking about who left you, I thank God for the folk who stayed. Instead of talking about who hurt you, see Tony, put the camera on Tony. I thank God for you, Tony. I thank God for Tony. I remember, Tony, when you fasted, how many days absolute? 14 days, no food, just water, right? I remember you walked in here looking like a skeleton. In one of the roughest seasons of my life, when it was hard for me to pray, Her held me down. Jesus. Hers are invaluable. Hers are involved. Hers, H-U-R, are invisible, often invisible. But number 4, hers are always investors. How do we know that, Pastor Mike? Her lived his life and performed his God-given ministry, often while others were watching. Sometime later, God needed someone to build the tabernacle and provide a place where the Lord could meet with his people. When the Lord looked down at those millions of Israelites, he settled his eyes on Basil. Who is that, Pastor Mike? This man just happened to be the grandson of a man named Hur. I believe Hur lived his life in such a way that his actions were an investment. Can I ask you a question? When I sit here and I see what you're doing in Tuscaloosa, I'm so proud of you. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. It is not easy to sit in that seat when there's some Moses in you. Let me say this. I said this on our call this morning, and I thought it was so powerful. Whereas I'm your Moses, you're somebody's Moses. So I want to say this to you, Pastor Hollins, as you walk in this journey and changing so many lives in Tuscaloosa. I mean this. I really want to say this to you. If her is an investment, you're not going to reap what you teach. You're going to reap what you live. In a sense, I want to say this, in your inner circle, how you model being her to me, I believe people will model being her to you. Did you catch that? So I try my best to let my life be an investment. I believe seeds come in different forms. Words you speak, the way you live. And I believe the harvest that I want to reap right now is I want to reap a harvest of people who have watched my heart. Her. Wow. Father, in Jesus' name, I just want to say thank you. I thank you for hers. I thank you for every person, God, who've been holding folk down and ain't nobody said thank you yet. I thank you for every person on the stream who has paid bills, fed people, kept children. You've been holding it down for so many people, and then they got the audacity to win and thank somebody else. God, if I never get a thank you from them, I just thank you for being God. God, I pray that you get the glory out of our lives. I thank you, God, for every person I thank you for every protester who we don't know their name because they may not be popular, but they're making an impact. God, I thank you for the Cara McClures, oh my God, Brother Hall. I thank you for, that beautiful sister. I prayed for her last night. She's on the front line getting people out of jail and everything. I can't remember her name, God, but I thank you for Star. I thank you for Star, God. She's doing a phenomenal job on the front lines. And although her name may never be in the news, they may never build a statue, I thank you because she's holding it down. I thank you for the people behind the scenes, God, who are making ways out of no ways, helping so many people. I pray, God, that all of us adopt the spirit of her, that we don't need credit, we don't need glory, as long as people are blessed. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Somebody say amen.